And yet another month has come to an end here in the Atlanta Braves franchise, so it is time for the monthly recap. We have finished the month of May, and our Atlanta Braves are sitting at 31-22 on the season, and that is just good enough for first place in the National League East. They are half game out of first place, as the Nationals are right on their tail, and then the Mets still have a chance as well at 5.5 games out in third place currently for the Mets. Taking a look at who's doing well for the Braves throughout the league, Freddie Freeman has been tearing it up as usual. He is 5th in the National League in average with a .327 batting average. His 64 hits are also 5th in the National League, and his 17 home runs are 3rd behind 2 Dodgers and Corey Seager and Justin Turner. Ender Inciarte has also had a pretty darn good start to the season. A .320 average has him at 8th in the National League, and then 63 hits is 7th, while his 35 runs scored is tied for 4th in the league, so he's doing a pretty good job of getting on base and getting scored as well, as this is a big difference from last year's Atlanta Braves team. Dansby Swanson, also a guy who has a high batting average, a .311 average. He is currently 12th in the National League. He is currently on the DL. We'll get into a bit of that later. Vincent is leading the National League in saves with 17. And Jaime Garcia is 2nd in the National League in home runs allowed. He's only allowed 2 home runs this season, doing a fantastic job of keeping the ball in the ballpark. And Jeremy Hellickson is doing a fantastic job of keeping runners off base without putting them on himself, as he has a .99 whip. His ERA is, I believe, about 3-something, like low 3, but his whip is .99, as he is doing a great job of pitching quite well so far in this season. He's been a nice pickup from the Phillies in the offseason as a free agent. And at the end of May, the Player of the Month and the Rookie of the Month were 2 Braves, as the Batter of the Month was Freddie Freeman. In 98 at-bats in the month of May, he hit .347 with 10 home runs and 32 RBI. The guy was absolutely feeling it in the month of May. And then Zach Granite, who's not a starter, he's a spark plug off the bench, and he has been a spark plug so far in this season. A 39 at-bats only in the month of May, but that was enough to land him a .359 average and Player of the Month. I do not have his stolen bases for the month of May, but I'm sure those played a factor into his Player of the Month. Or his Rookie of the Month, I should say. Taking a look at the pitchers that we haven't gone over so far, Aaron Blair is 5-1 with a 3.21 ERA in that rotation. He is a quite good win-loss at 5-1 if you believe in pitcher wins as a quality stat. I personally do not believe in pitcher wins as a good way to look at how good a pitcher is playing right now. But if you do, the 5-1 record is there for you to be happy about. Tehran is 4-3 with a 3.68 ERA. He's been struggling a bit recently. He had a great April, but he struggled a bit in May. I'm sure he'll bounce back as he is Julio Tehran. Mike Fultonavich is 4-3 with a 4.07 ERA. The ERA is a bit high, but I mean, he's the 5th starter. I'll take a 4.07 for my 5th starter. Matt Wisler has been solid in the long reliever role. He has a 2.70 ERA in 40 innings pitched, while Kyle Crockett, our lefty specialist, has 28 1/3 innings pitched and a 3.81 ERA. I'm sure that ERA will eventually come down, as he is a pretty darn good reliever. Joe Biagini has 39 2/3 innings pitched and a 2.50 ERA. He's been quite solid this year. I'm thinking the plan for Joe Biagini long-term is to be like a Chris Davinsky, like what Chris Davinsky does for the Houston Astros in real life. Kind of like what Adam Warren does for the Yankees in real life. He comes in all situations. You need him for multiple innings, bring him in. You need him to set up a game if, like, one of your setups are tired that game, bring him in. Tanner Scheppers also has been quite good out of the bullpen with 26 innings pitched and a 2.42 ERA. He might be replacing Medlin in the setup spot here eventually, as Vizcaino has 14 2/3 innings pitched and a 1.84 ERA. He's been very solid, but Chris Medlin's gotten off to a disappointing start, as in 15 innings pitched, he has a 7.20 ERA. So he might be bumped back into middle relief, while Tanner Scheppers is moved into the setup spot. Like I mentioned earlier, Dansby Swanson is on the DL right now. He has a sprained ligament in his knee. He's only out for 1 to 6 more days, and I believe only has like 4 days of DL time left, so he's not going to be out for much longer. He'll be back very soon in the month of June. He did not miss much time to begin with. He really only missed like a couple series. He was out for like 1 or 2 weeks. And Tovar did a quite solid job taking his place, as he's currently on fire as that second baseman since Albie shifted over to short. But once Swanson comes back, Albies will be shifting back to second, and Swanson is, of course, the shortstop. And now let's take a look at the farm, guys who we have had prospect profiles on, who people are interested to see what they're up to this season, and guys who just maybe aren't getting prospect profiles, and if they're doing well. Glenn Sparkman, a guy who was up in the Major Leagues last year in 2017 for us, he is, once again, he's like the Aaron Blair of AAA, a 7-1 record. If pitcher wins means much to you, then there you go, a 7-1 record. He has a 3.55 ERA, though. Not the best, not the worst, but he's getting the job done winning ball games. Mike Soroka is doing very well in AAA as well, a 4-3 record with a 2.65 ERA, very good sub-3 ERA. Colby Allard is a guy who was in AAA. If you're wondering why there's guys below him who are in AAA on the roster and he's in AA, he was in AAA, he was getting rocked in AAA, so I sent him back to AA to see if he could work on his game and possibly just pitch well down there to develop some more. He only has a 4.08 ERA right now in AA, but hopefully he'll be able to improve upon that. Luis Gohara, the Brazilian pitcher, is in AAA, getting no run support, a 2-5 record, but a 3.02 ERA. So he's pitching well, just getting no run support. Alex Jackson, the catcher, is a guy who's performing quite well in AAA. He is hitting a 291 average with 4 home runs and 196 at-bats for the Gwinnett Braves. And then there's also Travis Demerit, the second baseman, whose power numbers have returned. If you remember when he did the prospect profile, he was a guy who, I said he had a lot of power, but he wasn't hitting for much power. But this time, I remember this time last year, he really did not have much home runs. I think even later in the season last year, he only had like 4 home runs. And so far, we're at the end of May, and he has 7 home runs, a 247 average, and 182 at-bats. So his average dipped a little, but his home runs are definitely up, as he is down in AAA, performing pretty well. So with that being said, that's going to wrap things up here for this edition of the Atlanta Braves franchise, the monthly recap as we have finished the month of May, sitting at 31-22 on the season, sitting at first place, a half game in front of the Washington Nationals as we prepare to head into the month of June. I've been your host, Jerseyborn, and I'm saying goodbye.
Clear your conscience, clear your thoughts with space.